Legends, sponsored by calljacob.com.
You've lived a Laker life and you continue to live a Laker life. Do you have to pinch yourself knowing that you grew up here and, you're living the dream?
Chris, the story I tell all the time is when I was a little kid, and the younger people in your audience, maybe even you, probably don't know what a transistor radio is. Do you know what a transistor radio is?
I do vaguely, but
it's basically so the modern audience can understand. It's the size of a phone, and you would just turn it on and you could listen to the radio. And when I was a kid, I didn't sleep. It's a trait I still carry with me today. And so my mom and dad would always be yelling at me to go to bed, go to bed. And what I would do was put the transistor radio under my pillow and then put my head on the pillow so only I could hear Chick Hearn call the games. And that way I could follow the Lakers when my parents thought I was actually sleeping, but I wasn't. And so every once in a while, I will say something while I'm doing a game that I've never said before, but I know it must have come from those nights I said with my, I'm channeling Chick somehow. So for me to have Chick's old job is, you said it, it's surreal. Is the right word.
John, growing up, was there a moment that really stuck with you that said, this is the Lakers, this is my team, this is how I fell in love with basketball and with the purple and gold?
When I was in high school, at Corona Del Mar High School in Newport Beach, Chris, the same high school, strangely, that Bill McDonald attended.
Which is wild, by the way.
Yeah, Billy's older than me. He's 4 years older than me. But when I was in high school is when the Lakers drafted Magic Johnson. And it changed everything from the way we watched games to the way we played on the playground. I mean, everybody before that wanted to be the guy who scored. When Magic came along, everybody wanted to be the guy who assisted on the pass, because Magic made it cool to pass. And I think when Showtime was born, when Magic joined Kareem, and then 3 years later, Worthy came in, that to me are my fondest memories of those Showtime Laker teams and of the fact that Magic made it cool to pass, Kareem had the sky hook, and Worthy had the goggles. And after that, I was off and running.
John, when did you realize you wanted to be a sports broadcaster, and the grind that you went through to get back to Los Angeles from Texas to San Diego? But when was that moment that you said, you know what, I want to do this for a living?
My parents will tell you it was at a very young age, because I used to turn the sound down on the TV and I would call the games, which, looking back on it, my parents were incredibly loving and understanding to allow me to do that, because it must have just been torture for them to have to listen to me announce the games. But I knew, Chris, I think from a young age that I wasn't Michael Thompson's size. I wasn't 6'9", 235 pounds. So I probably wasn't going to be a professional athlete. But when I heard that you could get paid to basically describe what was happening in these games, I knew that job was for me. So I was lucky. I knew at a young age I wanted to be a sportscaster, probably from the time I was 11 or 12 years old.
And you worked your way back to Los Angeles. 1995, was it, John, when you came to KCBS and KCAL 9?
Yeah, I got out of UCLA in 85. I went to Monroe, Louisiana for a year. I went to Beaumont, Texas for 4 years. I went to San Diego in 1990. And then in 1995, I got a job at KCAL. So that was kind of my full circle moment. I had, for lack of a better term, I had spent 10 years in the minors. Although I looked at San Diego as almost a gift. When I went from Beaumont, Texas to San Diego, I always, the nickname for San Diego, Chris, is the Velvet Trap, because you get to live there, which is one of the in the country, but you don't make any money. It's not a very big market size. So it hurt to leave San Diego because of how nice it was. My wife, Lisa, we met there. But then when LA calls in particular, if you get a chance to work in the market that you grew up in, you got to jump at it. So I spent 10 years in places like Monroe, Louisiana, and Beaumont, Texas, and San Diego. And then I was able to kind of work my way up.
So you're covering all LA sports at KCBS and KCAL. I think it's 2002. You get the Lakers sideline job. Do you remember what led to you getting that position?
in a weird way, because Chick Hearn was my idol and was very nice to me and very helpful when I was working my way up. When Chick passed away, that's when they decided to add a sideline reporter. They were never going to do it when Chick was alive, because anybody who would take airtime away from Chick, as Stu Lance will tell you, was going to get a lot of hate mail because Chick was so good. But when Chick stepped away and Paul Sunderland and Stu took over, they figured, okay, now's the chance to add a sideline reporter. And Chris, it was a little bit of fate. I had your job. I was doing sports at KCAL, and I was the one guy that they would send to work the pre and the post game show on Laker games. Normally it was a West Coast game. So if it was like Sacramento or Golden State or Phoenix, they would send me to do live shots and do interviews. And then that was going well. So they expanded it to the rest of the Western Conference. So then I was doing Denver and Minnesota and Utah and places like that. And when Chick stopped doing the games, they said, well, we'll just put John in the traveling party and he can do it for every game. And I got to do that from 2002 all the way to 2011 when I got the radio play-by-play job. So that was 10 really fun years of basically being in that Laker world, being the sideline reporter, and getting to travel with the team. So it kind of prepared me for what I was doing now.
And John, you mentioned you had the transistor radio under your pillow. You knew how this worked with Chick. This was a newly created position for you, right in the center of it during, the heyday of that three-peat team. I mean, what are you thinking in that moment? Like, this is Lakers history. I'm in the middle of a position created for me.
What was I thinking? 4 words: don't screw it up. The one thing about the Lakers is the games are the thing. We're there. And in a weird way, Chris, because it's Chick Hearn's chair, I'm the 4th guy to have it since Chick passed away. But everybody just assumes I took over for Chick because he was such a dominating presence. But the truth is, Paul Sunderland went, then Joel Myers went, then Spiriditas went, then me. Yeah. So I'm 4 spots removed, but it's still because there's a statue of the guy outside the building. So in a weird way, you almost relax because no matter how, if I was the greatest basketball announcer ever, I still wouldn't be as good as Chick. Like, the job of voice of the Lakers, greatest Laker announcer ever, is taken by that guy that has the statue out in front. Yeah. So at that point, and Bill McDonald and I have had a lot of conversations about it. At that point, you're just trying to honor the chair. You're trying to make sure that, and the 2 best pieces of advice that Chick gave me before he died were, number 1, especially in Los Angeles, take care of the guy in his car. Because my average listener, Chris, is somebody that's stuck on the freeway. They're coming home from work. I'm talking to you from New York today. So, we're doing a game against the Knicks this week where it's going to tip off at 4:30 in Los Angeles. So a lot of Laker fans are stuck in their cars. What they really want is to get home and turn on the TV. So it's my job, and it's Michael Thompson's job, to take care of that guy in the car. Don't leave that guy hanging, and make sure he knows everything that he needs to know. And the other thing Chick kind of gave us the license to do is tell the truth. A lot of announcers, will sugarcoat if their team is getting killed. Chick never did that. Yeah. So we're allowed to tell the truth because of his legacy. Now, you need to be a little careful. You can't get on him too much. I certainly don't have the rope that Chick had, but at the same time, we had a game earlier this year where Minnesota outscored us 40-12 in 1 quarter. Just wasn't our night. Chick gave us a license to go ahead and tell the audience what's really happening. So I credit him a lot for the role I have now, because he kind of paved the way.
All right, John, you knew this question was coming. February 1st, 2004, Super Bowl 38. What do you remember about that night?
Okay, it was a day game. So it was a day game in Toronto. Weird stuff always happens in Toronto, Chris, and I'll explain that in a second. But so I'm doing a day game in Toronto, and it's the day of the Super Bowl, so we're playing early. And it's hotly contested. Shaq and Kobe are going to the rim. They're not getting any whistles. Vince Carter's going to the rim for Toronto. He's not getting any whistles. And I think the audience knows that I only take a player if the Lakers win. If the Lakers lose, we don't interview anybody on the court. They go to the locker room, they get a 10-minute cooling off period, and then we go in there. and basically ask them what happened. But if they win, I'm allowed to take a player on the court. So I arranged with John Black, who was the PR director at the time, to take Shaq when the game ended. And I walked over to Shaq and I said something like, this was hotly contested down the stretch, but you managed to pull it out. How'd you do it? Shaq completely ignored the question and basically said, and by the way, all you have to do is type 2 words into a YouTube search and this will come up. Shaq swears. And Shaq, I don't even think he heard what I was asking him. And he basically said, I just want to say that if David Stern, who was the commissioner at the time, the late, great David Stern, wants to keep screwing up this game, then he'll keep bringing these effing refs back here and they're ruining the effing game. And obviously he said the F word. And Chris, my response to that was to grab his elbow. I had him by the elbow like this. And I said, Shaq, we're on live. And he said, I don't give a blank. And he swore again.
I know you were frustrated at how the officiating went down the stretch there, but you guys pulled it out and was a big win.
David Stern wonder why the league is losing money. That's why. People pay good money to come watch these athletes play, and they try to take over the game.
Shaq, we're on live. I know. Let me ask you this.
And at the time, Chris, now when you do the news, when anybody at KCAL does the news, you're on a 7-second delay. This was before we had installed a delay system at KCBS KCAL. I'm kind of the unofficial reason why they had to put that in. Well, not me, but Shaq. But so all those words went over the air. And I knew that every word he said was a separate fine. So when he used the F word the first time, that was probably $500,000. When he said it the second time, that was another $500,000. And then when he said, I don't give a blank, now I'm over $1 million and I'm pretty much looking for a job. And I thought, this is going to be awful. Shaq is going to be suspended. I'm going to be suspended and I might be fired. And I don't know what came over me, but I said, I'm going to just keep this going and give him a chance to bail himself out.
Yeah.
And if there's any young aspiring sports reporters, you included, that are watching this, the easiest way to calm somebody down and get them to say nice things is to ask them about their teammates. So I said something like, hey, you played your usual great game, but Rick Fox and Robert Horry, I thought kind of won this game for you by filling their roles off the bench. And now Shaq's such a nice guy, he's not going to pass a chance to compliment his teammates. And he actually calmed down, and we did about 2 minutes. And Chris, the bottom line of this whole story is we did not get fined at all. Do you know why?
Why is that?
Later that day, the Super Bowl was on CBS, and it was Janet Jackson and Justin Timberlake and the famous wardrobe malfunction. And they fined CBS a fortune for that. And I think they looked at it and said, look, we're fining them so much money for the wardrobe malfunction that we're just going to let the Shaquille O'Neal thing slide. Now, full disclosure, Shaq did get suspended for the next game, which was in Indiana, and he was making so much money that I think it cost him over $250,000, but it didn't cost the station anything. And I remember going to Shaq in the back of the plane, and I said, man, I feel terrible that I cost you all this money. And he said, I'd do it again. He wasn't even mad at me. He was just still mad at the refs, and and so that's how it worked out. But it's one of the 2 most famous things about me if you do a Google search. The other one, again, happened in Toronto, where I got caught putting makeup on.
I remember that.
Like 2 years later, and at that point, I was doing 2 roles. It was before Mike Trudell had been hired to be the sideline guy. So I was doing radio and I was doing post-game TV, and so I was putting makeup on, and what I didn't realize was I was directly in the shot of Billy Mack and Stu while I was putting the makeup on. And so everybody saw it. It went on the Tonight Show. I was #1 on ESPN's Not Top 10. So the 2 weirdest things that have ever happened to me on camera both happened in Toronto. And thank goodness we haven't been to Toronto yet this year.
I was going to say, John, what's that date The Lakers are in Toronto this season, which is marked. I'm going to circle that one.
I always like stay very tight to the vest and I don't even go out in Toronto anymore because I'm scared something bad might happen.
You know what? You know what's crazy about that day is I'm on the East Coast. I'm like graduating from college in Virginia. It's 2004. This is before Twitter. This is before things are going viral. And I remember seeing that. I remember being all over Sports Center. It was the Super Bowl.
Right. But before you and I even knew each other, obviously. Yeah.
Exactly. But could you imagine, like, in 2021, you'd be trending immediately on Twitter just for that interview?
Right. I guess in that one small way, I'm lucky that social media wasn't a bigger deal at the time, but it got as much traction, Chris, as you could get. I was on every late night talk show. I did several interviews about it. I felt really bad that I cost Shaq the money for the first thing. And then for the second thing, I just had to own it. That, yeah, okay, so most guys, as you know, wear makeup when they do TV.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think everybody knew that at the time, and I became the poster boy for it. So it's still out there, by the way. If you're watching, I'm sure you may put that in here, but if you don't, and you just go to YouTube, if you Google either Shaq swears or John Ireland makeup, both those things will come up right away.
I think we got both in the files there. Okay, Cal. Hey, John, a few more for you. When you get the play-by-play job in 2011, A, how quickly has this decade gone by? And B, what did you think about when you got the job?
The way I've often described this, Chris, is I'm a beach kid. So it's like you're surfing. It's like you've caught this unbelievable wave and you just ride it until it kicks you off. And what I thought about was if, Chick was very nice to me when he was alive. And I thought, if I can take care of people the way Chick took care of people, even a quarter of the way, as well as he did it, then I'll feel good about it. And I think I've been able to do that. I think I've kind of remembered always about taking care of that guy in the car. Always remember the game is the show, not you. I'm very thankful. I'm a Jimmy Buffett fan, Chris. I don't know if you ever listened to it, listen to him, but he's got a line in one of his songs that says, "If it suddenly ended tomorrow, I could somehow adjust to the fall. Good times and riches and sons of I've seen more than I can recall." And I've had all those things happen. It's been an incredible ride. I have no idea how long it's going to end. It could end next week. It could end 10 years from now. But I'm very thankful that I got an opportunity to do it and to sit in Chick's chair, because I think anybody who's done that, whether it be Paul or Joel or Spiro or me, will tell you that that is the best chair in broadcasting, to get to announce Laker games. Because think about it, Chris, even when we don't win, it's dramatic. We're never sure, that's from the late great Dr. Buss. He knew that this was a star-driven town. He knew that that it had to be more than just a game, and he added all these great advantages like courtside seats and cheerleaders dancing on the floor and everything else. And so for me to be one of the people that gets to bring that to fans who can't be in the building is a really big honor.
Final thing for you. We end on Kobe Bryant and just your relationship with Kobe, the fact that you covered him for his entire career. What did he mean to you personally, John?
Well, first of all, how old are your kids now?
9 weeks.
Okay. So this is something you can identify with, because I know you and your wife. The way I bonded with Kobe is one of the weird stories of all time. I got here the same year he got here, so we were always cordial to each other. And one day we're walking to the plane, and it was right after Natalia, his oldest daughter, was born. And Natalia and my son Jack are about the same age. And I said to Kobe, "How's everything going?" He goes, "It's great, except Vanessa can't get even like a half hour to take a shower." I mean, Natalia's at that age where she just clings to her mom. I feel bad for her. I said, "Try this." And I happen to have in my backpack, because I had picked it up on the way in there. and these are probably out of date by now, but there was things back then called Baby Einstein videos. And basically they were 20, 30-minute DVDs you could buy with colors and sights and sounds, and your infant would watch this and it would captivate them for 20 minutes. And there was Baby Einstein and Baby Galileo, which was all about space, and Baby Neptune, which was all about water. And so I gave one to Kobe. I said, throw this on, see if Natalia takes to it. It would at least buy Vanessa 15 minutes to go take a shower or maybe get something to eat.
Yeah.
And he comes back to me the next day and he makes a beeline right for me. He goes, I can't believe it. He goes, I went out and bought all 21 of those things, those videos. I gave him one and we bonded over that. And then we started talking about everything, kids, family, life. And we became, pretty close, at least as close as you can be for a guy who's an announcer compared to a guy that's a player. And I got to cover his whole career, Chris. And still, if you ask me to this day what my favorite game is, it's Kobe's last game on a terrible Lakers team where he scored 60 points on his way out. I don't think anybody will ever do it. It was like it was out of a movie. That's another thing you can watch on YouTube. One of our listeners, radio listeners, went and took the video from ESPN and put Michael and I's call on the game for the whole fourth quarter. Amazing. And I still play it every year on the anniversary of that game on my radio show. I take a one segment. I said, here's Kobe's last quarter. And I just think he was a comet of a star in Los Angeles. I don't think we'll ever see anything like him again, even though we've had every big star in the NBA without except. We've had Kareem, we've had Shaq, we've had Wilt, now we have LeBron and AD. And Kobe was as bright as any of them. And the fact that my timing was, my dad used to say, you've been kicked in the rear with an Irish horseshoe to get there at the same time as Kobe. And so I feel incredibly lucky that my legacy will always be tied to his. I got to go to 7 NBA finals because of him. You were at a couple of those. For people who don't know, Chris and I used to work together at the Lakers for a lot of years. And so I'm sure you have the same feeling sometimes, that we were just lucky that our time at the Lakers happened to be with, parallel to his time at the Lakers. Don't you think about that sometimes? I
think about it all the time. And I don't even feel like it's real sometimes. I was there for 9 of his last 10 seasons. And, you called all these games. In the fourth quarter, Lakers are down 4-6. You feel like it's no problem. Number 24 is going to take over.
Yeah, it's funny you should bring that up. What we used to say is, Michael and I would look at each other and say, if we can keep this game close, then we can Kobe it in the fourth quarter.
That's what it
We're
is.
Kobe as a verb. And I can't tell you how many times it happened. I mean, there's, you can find highlights online of just Kobe game winners, and the highlights are like 9 minutes long. Because not only would he often make those shots, but Chris, he always wanted to take those shots. A lot of guys don't even want to shoot it. And Kobe knew, I'd rather live or die with what I can do. And he didn't make them all. Matter of fact, his percentages are lower than some other guys. But he made so many of them that guys like me and you just got used to him pulling the game out of the fire at the end. It was really, really fun.
And I go back to, you talk about being so lucky, just the profound sadness when he passed. I believe you may have been on the team plane traveling. Yeah. You probably remember that day so clearly, but just the outpouring around the world for Kobe Bryant. And I think we all knew it, but when you see it, it just kind of hit differently. That stretch when he passed to his memorial at Staples Center, it just made you realize, right? Like, this was somebody that was not only one of the best basketball players of all time, but he was impacting lives. He was impacting girls basketball. He was going to do something in his second act, John, that may have been greater than his basketball act.
Right. And that's the way he thought, Chris. He didn't like talking about basketball once he retired. He wanted to talk about what's next. And you said it about his, association with girls basketball. Basically he was grooming Gianna to go to UConn and go to the WNBA and pick up where his legacy left off. And to lose not only Kobe, but Gianna and all those other girls, it's unspeakable. And I'm not even ashamed to admit this to you, that when we were flying home that day, we were coming back from Philadelphia. We'd played the night before and we spent the night there and flew home the next morning. and we got word of it while we were on the plane in the air. I actually thought and fully believed in my heart that we were going to get another piece of news that he walked away. I mean, I just looked at him as superhuman.
Yeah.
That there's no way that Kobe Bryant went down in a helicopter crash. It's just, I couldn't process it. I was waiting to hear that, you know, he was in a hospital someplace, but recovering. And I don't think I fully accepted it until we landed in LA and there were people from the Lakers front office at the bottom of the stairs to meet the plane. And I knew it was real. And I don't think anything's ever really been the same for any of us since then, but the best part of it is you get to take all those memories he created with you. I worry about Vanessa and, Natalia and the other girls sometimes, because it's just got to be incredibly hard on them. But he touched so many lives in such a great way, and we get to take all those memories with us. So I don't know if this comes off weird, but I still consider myself really lucky to have been there for all that.
No question about it. And John, you said it, you riding the wave, the LeBron era. You've seen a title since then, a couple of years ago in the bubble.
Yeah.
Man, just what's next? Who knows?
Okay, so right, nobody knows. And I know a lot of people, Chris, have said that, oh, this Laker team doesn't look very good. This Laker team, if you listen to my radio show, I've been preaching for 2 months that this team was going to start 10-10. I may hit it right on the number. We're not quite to the 20th game yet, as you and I are recording this, but we're close. And I think the reason for that is we have 11 new players, 11. And I've been around this game long enough to know that it takes time for a group of guys like that to learn how to play together. Now, I've been taking a little heat because I'm president of the Russell Westbrook fan club. He's my favorite player in the NBA. He was before he got here. Full disclosure, I went to UCLA, rooted for him there. And part of the reason for that, Chris, is I love how hard he plays. I just think he plays harder than anybody else. If you're going to invest 3 hours, or if you're going to go to a game and spend money on tickets and concessions and parking, or even if you're just going to take that time out of your day to devote it to the Lakers, he never doesn't empty the tank. Russ plays hard all the time. Doesn't always work. He gets a lot of fouls going to the basket and does a lot of crazy stuff. But I think that eventually when he finds his way, and Anthony Davis, we're recording this right after they came back from 17 down in a game I did yesterday, a crazy game in Detroit, where Anthony Davis took over the game defensively. Russ took it over offensively. I may be looking at this through purple and gold colored glasses, but I really think the Lakers are going to be there at the end. I just think they're going to figure it out, and I don't think anybody wants to play them in the playoffs. I may have to eat those words, but I've been around this long enough to know that the way they're playing now is not going to be the way they're playing in March, April, and May. And I'm still pretty high on them and pretty confident. I'm crossing my fingers and knocking on wood as I say that, but I feel good about it.